Ignorance is never something to celebrate because it's a person's ability to understand the world and make choices that reflect reality. When Obama emphasizes that ignorance is not a virtue, he is pointing out that pretending not to know, avoiding facts, or relying on assumptions instead of truth only creates weakness in individuals and in society. A person who chooses to stay uninformed is basically choosing to walk through life blindfolded, hoping that things will somehow work out. But hope without understanding is not strength, it is a gamble. Knowledge gives direction, ignorance leaves a person wandering. When people celebrate ignorance, whether by rejecting science, ignoring evidence, or refusing to learn, it creates an environment where misinformation grows, where fear spreads easily, and where progress becomes slowed or even reversed. Obama's message is a reminder that the world is constantly changing, and the only way to deal with that change is to keep learning, keep thinking, and keep questioning. Ignorance can feel comfortable, which is why some people fall into it without realizing. It is easier to stick with what we already believe than to challenge ourselves with something new. It is easier to stay within our bubble than to face information that might force us to rethink our habits, our beliefs, or our identity. But comfort is not growth. Growth often requires discomfort, effort, and humility. When people reject knowledge because it challenges them, they close the door on improvement. Obama's message reminds us that confidence built on ignorance is fragile. Real confidence comes from understanding, from being able to look at a problem from different angles, from recognizing where you stand and why. Ignorance gives false confidence. Knowledge gives grounded strength. Another danger of celebrating ignorance is that it allows manipulation. When people do not understand how systems work, politics, economics, media, technology, they become easy targets for those who want to mislead or control them. An uninformed population can be convinced of anything because they lack the tools to question or verify. That is why dictators and oppressive leaders throughout history have always feared an educated public. Knowledge empowers people to challenge authority, to see through lies, and to demand fairness. Ignorance creates obedience, but knowledge creates independence. Obama's point is that ignorance is not just a personal weakness. It is a threat to democracy and freedom. A society that stops valuing knowledge becomes vulnerable to division, hate, and manipulation. Ignorance also leads to fear. People fear what they do not understand. They fear different cultures, different religions, new technologies, scientific discoveries, or social changes, simply because they do not know enough about them. That fear then turns into anger, hostility, or prejudice. Many of the world's conflicts come from misunderstanding, from people refusing to learn about others, from assumptions passed down without question. When people choose knowledge instead of ignorance, they begin to see that differences are not threats. They start to understand the complexity of the world, and from that understanding comes empathy. Ignorance closes the mind, knowledge opens it. Obama also wants people to recognize that ignorance is never a strategy for solving real problems. Whether the issue is climate change, healthcare, education, or economic inequality, refusing to learn or refusing to accept facts will never make the problem disappear. It will only make solutions harder. A society that ignores problems ends up paying a higher price later. A person who ignores responsibilities eventually faces consequences. Knowledge is what helps us take action before it is too late. Ignorance delays action until damage is already done. That is why celebrating ignorance is dangerous. It encourages people to avoid responsibility instead of facing it. And without responsibility, progress becomes impossible. It is important to understand that knowledge is not about knowing everything. No one knows everything. Knowledge is about being willing to learn, being open to new information, and being honest about what you don't know. Ignorance becomes harmful not when someone lacks information, but when they refuse to seek it. A curious person who knows little is still on a path toward growth. A stubborn person who refuses to learn stays stuck forever. Obama's message encourages people to stay humble because humility is the beginning of wisdom. When people admit they don't know something, they open themselves to learning. When they pretend they already know everything, they block themselves from growth. Ignorance also weakens communities. When people avoid learning about their society, they stop participating in decisions that affect their lives. They stop voting, stop speaking up, stop getting involved. This creates a vacuum that allows only a few voices to shape the future, while the majority remains silent. Democracy depends on informed citizens. A community that values knowledge will have stronger leadership, better decision-making, and more active participation. A community that celebrates ignorance becomes passive, divided, and easily misled. Obama's message is a call to stay informed not just for personal benefit, but for the benefit of society. In the modern world, choosing knowledge is more important than ever. Information is everywhere, but not all of it is true. Ignorance today is not just the absence of knowledge. Sometimes it is the presence of false information. People must learn how to think critically, verify facts, and question sources. Otherwise, they fall into modern traps of misinformation, conspiracy theories, and emotional manipulation. Obama's warning is clear. Ignorance may be easy, but it is dangerous. Knowledge requires effort, but it is the only path to progress, stability, and freedom. In the end, ignorance is not a virtue because it limits its potential. It limits how far a person can go, how much they can achieve, and how well they can understand the world they live in. Knowledge, curiosity, and openness are what create strong minds and strong societies. Obama's message is a reminder that learning is not something you finish, it is something you live. Education is the foundation of empowerment because it gives individuals the tools they need to shape their own lives, make informed decisions, and contribute meaningfully to society. When Obama speaks about the importance of education, he is not limiting the idea to classrooms, textbooks, or degrees. He is referring to a lifelong process of learning, staying curious, expanding one's understanding, and developing the ability to think critically. Education allows people to rise above limitations, whether those are created by poverty, environment, or lack of opportunity. It provides a pathway to independence. When a person learns, they unlock new possibilities. When they refuse to learn, they remain stuck where they are. Education gives people the power to break cycles, challenge norms, and chart their own future. A key element of education is the ability to question. People who are educated do not accept everything at face value. They learn to ask why and how. This questioning mindset prevents them from being manipulated or misled. It protects them from misinformation and allows them to navigate the world more effectively. Without education, individuals may depend solely on emotion, hearsay, or tradition, rather than logic or evidence. Obama highlights that knowledge is a safeguard. It protects you from exploitation and strengthens your ability to judge what is true, fair, or beneficial. A society of educated people is harder to fool, harder to divide, and harder to control through fear or misinformation. Education also empowers people by giving them confidence, real, grounded confidence. Not arrogance, but assurance that comes from understanding. When people understand how things work, they feel capable of participating. They feel their voice matters. They are able to speak up in discussions, contribute to solutions, and communicate effectively. Without education, even talented individuals may feel silenced or invisible because they lack the language or tools to express themselves. Education gives people the vocabulary of empowerment. It helps them articulate their experiences, defend their rights, and influence decisions that shape their lives. Another powerful aspect of education is that it expands perspective. When people learn about other cultures, histories, and viewpoints, they become less judgmental and more compassionate. They begin to understand that the world is much larger than their immediate environment. This broader perspective reduces prejudice, increases empathy, and makes cooperation easier. Many of the world's conflicts arise because groups do not understand one another. Education creates bridges where ignorance creates walls. Obama stresses that a well-informed person is better equipped to appreciate diversity and find common ground with others, which leads to a more peaceful and cooperative society. Education also nurtures creativity and innovation. When people are exposed to new ideas, they begin to imagine new possibilities. They learn that problems can be solved in different ways, that solutions are not limited to what has been done before. Innovation comes from knowledge, combining existing ideas with fresh perspectives. Without education, societies become stagnant, repeating the same patterns and unable to adapt to change. With education, they move forward. That is why nations invest heavily in schools, research, science, and technology, because educated citizens are the drivers of progress. Obama's message is clear: without learning, there is no advancement. Lifelong learning is especially important in a world that is constantly changing. Technology evolves, industries transform, and new challenges emerge. A skill that was useful 10 years ago may be irrelevant today. Therefore, education cannot end at graduation. It must continue throughout life. People must remain adaptable, willing to learn new skills and adjust to new environments. Those who stop learning fall behind, while those who keep learning stay prepared. Obama encourages people to read more, explore more, and seek information beyond their comfort zone. The most powerful people are not those who know everything, but those who keep learning no matter their age. Education is also a tool of resilience. Life is unpredictable, and challenges arise when people least expect them. An educated person has a greater ability to adapt and recover. They can analyze problems, find solutions, and make strategic decisions. They can navigate setbacks rather than being overwhelmed by them. Education builds mental strength, an ability to remain calm, organized, and rational when facing difficulty. In contrast, ignorance often leads to impulsive decisions, emotional reactions, and ineffective responses. Knowledge strengthens a person's ability to survive and succeed, even in difficult situations. Another significant point Obama conveys is that education is the great equalizer. No matter where someone comes from or what circumstances they were born into, education can elevate them. It opens doors that might otherwise remain closed. It creates opportunities based on merit rather than background. For many people, education is the only path to upward mobility. It enables them to support their families, improve their communities, and escape cycles of hardship. Without education, inequality deepens. With education, individuals gain the power to transform their circumstances. Obama emphasizes this because he understands that knowledge is one of the few things that cannot be taken away from a person. Education also strengthens democracy. Informed citizens are better equipped to participate in civic life, understand their rights, evaluate policies, and choose leaders wisely. When people lack education, they become disengaged or apathetic, allowing others to make decisions for them. This weakens society and creates instability. A well-educated public, on the other hand, holds leaders accountable, demands fairness, and works toward the common good. Obama believes that a strong democracy depends on informed participation, and education is what fuels that participation. Finally, education shapes character. It teaches discipline, patience, perseverance, and curiosity. It helps people understand the value of effort. It teaches them that improvement happens gradually and requires commitment. It encourages humility by showing how much there is still to learn. These qualities are essential for personal success and for contributing positively to society. Education is more than knowledge. It is a mindset, a way of approaching life with openness and responsibility. In the end, education empowers individuals not just to survive, but to thrive. It gives them the tools to understand the world, reshape it, and build a better future. Obama's message is a reminder that learning is a lifelong gift, one that leads to freedom, opportunity, and growth. Progress requires accepting complexity because the real world is not simple, and the challenges we face cannot be solved through easy answers, quick assumptions, or emotional reactions. Obama emphasizes that the biggest issues, whether it's climate change, economic inequality, healthcare systems, global conflict, or technological change, are interconnected and layered. When people try to reduce complex problems into simple slogans, they create a false sense of clarity that does not match reality. Accepting complexity does not mean giving up. It means being willing to understand the deeper roots of a problem so that solutions can be meaningful and lasting. Many people avoid complexity because it feels overwhelming, but ignoring complexity only leads to shallow solutions that collapse under pressure. One of the reasons people resist complexity is because it forces them to confront uncertainty. Humans naturally prefer clear, definite answers. They make life feel stable and predictable, but the world does not operate on simplicity. When individuals accept complexity, they accept the fact that answers may take time, may require cooperation, and may demand sacrifice. Obama argues that maturity begins with acknowledging that important issues cannot be solved instantly or with one-dimensional thinking. This mindset is crucial not only for leaders but for ordinary citizens who must navigate a world filled with conflicting information, diverse opinions, and rapidly changing conditions. Another important layer of accepting complexity is understanding that different problems require different perspectives. No one person, group, or ideology has all the answers. Complex issues often require interdisciplinary thinking, combining science, economics, ethics, culture, and policy. For example, solving climate change is not just a scientific issue, it's also economic, political, social, and technological. Similarly, addressing healthcare challenges is not just about medicine, but also affordability, education, infrastructure, and social behavior. Obama emphasizes that to make real progress, people must be willing to listen to experts, consult different viewpoints, and integrate knowledge from multiple sources. Ignoring complexity leads to poor decision-making, but embracing it leads to better, more lasting solutions. Accepting complexity also encourages humility. When people realize that problems are complicated, they become less arrogant about their own opinions and more open to listening. Humility is an essential ingredient of progress because it allows individuals to work together, revise their beliefs, and remain adaptable. Arrogance closes doors, humility opens them. Obama's message suggests that recognizing complexity teaches people to say, "I might be wrong," which is the beginning of learning. When societies reject humility, they fall into division, each side believing it knows everything, unwilling to compromise or understand the viewpoint of the other. Complexity softens those divisions by forcing people to see that reality is rarely black and white. Another reason complexity matters is because it prepares societies for rapid changes. Technology is evolving faster than ever. Global issues like pandemics, migration, and economic shifts influence countries in unpredictable ways. If people cling to overly simple thinking, they will be unprepared and overwhelmed. But if they understand complexity, they can adapt more effectively. They can recognize patterns, anticipate consequences, and make smarter choices. Obama is pointing out that a society capable of navigating complexity is stronger, more resilient, and more innovative. Complexity also encourages creativity. Simple thinking leads to repeated mistakes and recycled solutions. Complex thinking opens the mind to new approaches. It asks deeper questions. Why is something happening? What are the underlying causes? What have we overlooked? By embracing complexity, individuals and societies develop the ability to think outside the obvious. Many breakthroughs in science, technology, and social change have come from people who ventured beyond simple explanations and explored deeper realities. Obama's message is that progress arises from those who are willing to examine the layers beneath a problem, rather than just reacting to the surface. One of the dangers of rejecting complexity is that it leads to frustration and blame. When people expect simple answers and do not get them, they look for scapegoats. They blame leaders, institutions, communities, or entire groups because they refuse to see the bigger picture. This creates division, anger, and mistrust. Accepting complexity teaches people that progress takes time, cooperation, patience, and effort. It reduces the impulse to blame and increases the willingness to work together. Societies that understand complexity are more peaceful because they acknowledge that challenges are shared, not caused by one group alone. Accepting complexity also deepens responsibility. When an issue is simplified, people assume someone else will fix it or that the solution is easy. But when they understand the complexity, they realize their own role in the situation. For example, understanding environmental issues often leads individuals to change their habits. Understanding economic inequality might inspire people to support fair policies. Understanding healthcare challenges might encourage people to promote education and healthy lifestyles. Complexity reveals that progress is collective, not individual. Obama's message suggests that when people grasp how interconnected everything is, they become more engaged and more willing to contribute. Another important aspect is that complexity encourages long-term thinking. Simple solutions often focus on quick results, but complex solutions focus on sustainable outcomes. Long-term thinking is essential for issues like climate policy, educational reform, or infrastructure planning, things that affect future generations. Accepting complexity means caring not only about immediate comfort but about long-term well-being. Obama emphasizes that real leadership is forward-looking, not reactionary. Finally, embracing complexity strengthens democracy. A democratic society requires informed citizens who can understand issues deeply, weigh different arguments, and make thoughtful decisions. When people refuse complexity, they become vulnerable to populism, emotional manipulation, and oversimplified rhetoric. When they embrace complexity, they become defenders of truth, reason, and fairness. Obama's message is ultimately about intellectual discipline, engaging deeply with challenges instead of running from them. In the end, progress requires accepting complexity because only then can societies confront reality as it truly is. Complexity leads to wisdom, cooperation, and meaningful solutions. It is difficult, but it is the only path that leads forward. Open-mindedness is essential for a strong society because it allows people to learn from one another, grow beyond their limitations, and create an environment where ideas can coexist instead of colliding. When Obama speaks about open-mindedness, he is talking about a mindset that welcomes different perspectives rather than shutting them out. In a world where people come from diverse cultures, backgrounds, and experiences, the ability to listen and understand becomes a source of strength. Open-mindedness does not mean agreeing with everyone or abandoning one's own beliefs. It means being willing to consider that other viewpoints may offer insight, value, or solutions that one has not yet thought about. Without this openness, individuals become trapped within the boundaries of their own assumptions, unable to evolve or see beyond what they already know. One reason open-mindedness is so powerful is that it reduces fear. Many fears come from misunderstanding, fear of different cultures, fear of change, fear of new ideas. When people are close-minded, they tend to view anything unfamiliar as a threat. This leads to suspicion, division, and prejudice. But when individuals approach differences with curiosity rather than fear, they begin to understand the stories, struggles, and motivations behind other people's actions. Understanding transforms fear into empathy. Instead of reacting defensively, open-minded individuals look deeper, they ask questions, they seek context. Obama's message encourages people to replace fear with engagement, because when people understand more, they fear less. Open-mindedness also fuels innovation. The greatest breakthroughs in history have come from individuals who were willing to think beyond traditional boundaries, challenge existing norms, and experiment with new ideas. Closed-mindedness kills creativity because it forces people to see the world in only one way. When people are open to new perspectives, they can combine ideas in unexpected ways, discover fresh solutions, and rethink old problems. This is true not only in science and technology, but also in social progress, relationships, education, and everyday life. A society full of open-minded people is one that continuously improves. A society full of closed minds becomes stagnant, repeating the same patterns and resisting change even when change is necessary. Another important element of open-mindedness is the ability to listen without immediately judging. Many people listen only to reply, not to understand. They defend their opinions automatically, as if changing one's mind is a sign of weakness. Obama challenges this idea by reminding people that changing one's mind in light of new information is a sign of growth, not defeat. It takes strength to admit that someone else may have a point, or that one's own view may be incomplete. Listening deeply does not mean surrendering one's beliefs. It means taking the time to understand the beliefs of others so that discussions become meaningful rather than confrontational. When people listen with openness, disagreements become opportunities for learning rather than battles to be won. Open-mindedness also supports cooperation. Society functions best when people work together, but cooperation is impossible when each side refuses to acknowledge the other's perspective. Division grows when people build walls around their beliefs, refusing to see beyond them. Open-mindedness bridges those gaps. It allows people to find common ground, to discover shared values, and to work toward goals that benefit everyone. Even when two individuals disagree deeply on certain issues, open-mindedness allows them to identify the areas where they can still collaborate. Without it, society becomes fragmented, and progress slows as people become focused on defeating each other rather than solving problems together. Another reason open-mindedness is vital is that it helps individuals adapt. The world is constantly changing. Technology evolves, cultures mix, global events create new challenges. Close-minded individuals struggle to adapt because they cling to familiar ideas and resist change. This resistance leaves them unprepared for new realities. Open-minded people, on the other hand, remain flexible. They can adjust their thinking, learn new skills, and rethink their assumptions based on new information. This adaptability strengthens them not only mentally but also emotionally. They are better equipped to handle setbacks, transitions, and uncertainty because they are not rigid in their beliefs or expectations. Open-mindedness also fosters respect. When people approach others with openness, they demonstrate that they value the thoughts, emotions, and experiences of those around them. Respect is not agreement, it is recognition of a person's humanity and their right to think differently. This respect builds trust, one of the most important foundations of a healthy society. When trust exists, communication becomes easier, conflicts become manageable, and relationships become stronger. In contrast, closed-mindedness breeds hostility and misunderstanding, leading to conflict that could have been avoided if people had simply taken the time to understand one another. Another crucial aspect of open-mindedness is that it encourages self-awareness. When people encounter new ideas, they are forced to reflect on their own beliefs, question where those beliefs came from, and identify whether they are based on truth, habit, or emotion. This reflection deepens self-knowledge. Many people go through life believing things they never questioned. Open-mindedness pushes them to explore the roots of their thinking, leading to a clearer sense of identity and purpose. It allows people to refine their values over time rather than remaining locked into outdated or unexamined beliefs. Open-mindedness also strengthens emotional intelligence. When people learn to understand various viewpoints, they become more patient, compassionate, and tolerant. They learn to communicate without hostility and to resolve disagreements through dialogue rather than confrontation. Emotional intelligence is essential for leadership, teamwork, and maintaining healthy relationships. By promoting open-mindedness, Obama is ultimately encouraging people to develop these emotional skills that contribute not only to personal success, but also to a more peaceful community. Finally, open-mindedness leads to unity. A diverse society cannot thrive when people insist on being right all the time or refuse to consider the perspectives of others. Unity is not about everyone thinking the same way. It is about allowing different ideas to coexist with respect. It is about building a society where differences are strengths rather than threats. Open-mindedness allows people to see diversity as an asset and to embrace the richness that comes from sharing knowledge, stories, and experiences. In the end, open-mindedness is essential because it expands understanding, strengthens relationships, fuels innovation, and creates a more compassionate and resilient society. Obama's message reminds us that true growth begins when we open our minds, not just to new ideas, but to each other. Knowledge must be paired with action because understanding alone does not create change, solve problems, or improve lives. Obama's message highlights a crucial truth. Information becomes powerful only when it is applied. Many people spend their lives accumulating knowledge, reading books, watching lectures, gathering ideas, and thinking deeply about their goals. But that knowledge remains useless if it never translates into action. Action is what transforms thought into reality. Action is what takes a vision and makes it tangible. Action is what turns potential into achievement. Without action, knowledge stays trapped in the mind, safe, comfortable, and untested. Obama emphasizes that the true value of learning lies in how it shapes behavior, decisions, and contributions to the world. One of the reasons knowledge without action is ineffective is that it creates an illusion of progress. People may feel smart, informed, or enlightened because they understand something intellectually. They may believe they are improving simply because they know more today than yesterday. But self-improvement, social progress, and meaningful change require more than awareness. They require stepping into situations, taking risks, and doing the uncomfortable work of implementation. It is easy to talk about justice, fairness, leadership, or innovation. It is much harder to practice those ideals in daily life. Action reveals whether a person truly believes in what they claim to know. Words are effortless, actions carry weight. Another important point is that action clarifies knowledge. When people put their understanding into practice, they discover what works and what does not. They learn from mistakes, refine their strategies, and deepen their insight. This process, testing, adjusting, improving, is how mastery develops. Without action, knowledge remains theoretical and incomplete. For example, reading about leadership cannot replace leading a team. Learning about health cannot replace practicing healthy habits. Understanding kindness cannot replace showing compassion to someone. Action completes knowledge by giving it real-world meaning. Obama suggests that the strongest individuals are those who combine their learning with the courage to act, even when outcomes are uncertain. Knowledge paired with action also builds confidence. Many people hesitate to act because they fear failure, rejection, or judgment. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, or the perfect skill set. But perfection never arrives. It is action that builds capability and confidence, not the other way around. When people take even small steps based on what they know, they begin to trust their abilities. They see progress, feel momentum, and gain belief in themselves. Knowledge gives direction, but action gives strength. Obama's message encourages people not to let fear or doubt silence their potential. The more they act, the more they grow. Another critical dimension is responsibility. Knowledge creates responsibility because once a person understands a problem, staying silent or inactive becomes a form of participation in the problem. If you know about injustice but do nothing, you allow it to continue. If you understand a harmful habit but ignore it, you choose its consequences. If you know how to help someone but stay distant, you contribute to their struggle. Knowledge without action can become a kind of moral laziness. Obama urges individuals not to remain spectators in their own communities or in the world. When people take responsibility based on what they know, they create positive influence, sometimes small, sometimes great, but always meaningful. Action is also essential because the world changes through effort, not intentions. Societies improve when individuals act, when they vote, volunteer, speak up, innovate, build, create, and participate. When people apply their knowledge for the greater good, communities become stronger, more informed, and more compassionate. Every major transformation, civil rights, technological breakthroughs, social reform, scientific discoveries, came from people who acted on what they knew. Understanding a problem was just the beginning. Taking action was what changed history. Obama's message invites listeners to recognize that each person carries the potential to make a difference through the choices they make and the steps they take. Another important element is perseverance. Action must be continuous, not occasional. Many people start strong but give up too soon. They expect quick results and become discouraged when progress is slow. But meaningful change requires consistency. Knowledge paired with persistent action becomes unstoppable. When a person acts repeatedly, learning, adapting, trying again, they eventually achieve what once seemed impossible. Action turns dreams into habits and habits into realities. Obama's reminder is that learning is not enough. One must also be willing to keep showing up, keep trying, and keep moving forward even when challenges arise. Additionally, acting on knowledge enhances character. It builds discipline, resilience, integrity, and courage. When people take action aligned with their values, they strengthen their identity and develop a moral backbone. They prove to themselves and to others that they stand for something. Knowledge alone does not build character. Action does. A person becomes trustworthy not by understanding right and wrong, but by choosing to do what is right. A person becomes strong not by learning about resilience, but by facing adversity and continuing anyway. Obama's message encourages people to live their values, not just think about them. Action also inspires others. When one person uses their knowledge to make a difference, it creates a ripple effect. It encourages family, friends, colleagues, and even strangers to reflect on their own potential to contribute. People are moved by example more than by theory. When they see someone take initiative, they feel empowered to do the same. A single act of courage, kindness, innovation, or leadership can ignite a chain reaction of change. Obama wants people to understand that their actions do not exist in isolation. They influence the world around them. In the end, knowledge must be paired with action because that is how progress happens. From the personal level to the global level, knowledge lights the path, but action is what moves the feet. Learning provides possibilities, but action turns those possibilities into reality. Obama's message is a call to live boldly, think deeply, and act consistently. He reminds us that the world changes not because people know more, but because people decide to do more with what they know.